Hi everyone, welcome back to Avery. A few weeks ago we looked at conditioning and a bit of the basic ideas behind the diet and how things are going to influence them to bring the birds into condition. Well, that starts in today's video for all of my birds, my native birds and my canaries. So conditioning starts today and it's going to build up the birds ideally in time for the start of April, when the birds will become, the lighting hours are correct for the birds to begin breeding. That's the native birds. The canaries will be ready slightly earlier and we'll cover why that is a little later on. So we're going to be looking at diet, housing, fitness and mite prevention and killing the mite as well if you do already have mite, which is gonna happen. So hopefully you do enjoy today's video and you find some useful tips, and if you are new here, make sure you subscribe. So in other videos, we have gone into a bit more detail on sort of the diet of the birds, but this week has marked the start of the egg food for this year in the conditioning. So I make two different types of egg food. We make one for conditioning and one for breeding. It's slightly different, and the one for breeding is more for rearing the youngsters, as well as keeping the adults in good condition, but we need a lot more in it and a lot of different things to really help the youngsters grow. So the conditioning one is slightly different. So what we have in that is we have sweet corn, we have peas, we have kale and we have carrots. They're the four main vegetables which go in a decent amount. And what I do is I get all them, we blend them up and we make that as a wet mix. We also add a garlic clove. Now I'm adding pretty much a garlic clove for a general amount batch. We're talking probably 2 to 3 kilos in total here when you add it to your dry egg food mix, so your like crushed biscuit. So it's about 2 to 3 kilos, and I'll add a garlic clove. If I'm doing slightly larger mixes, which generally will be more in the breeding season, I'll be adding maybe 2 garlic cloves, and that's good for immune health and clearing the birds out that way, and the birds do quite readily take the mix. So not only do we add those 4 vegetables and obviously the garlic, but we also add a few supplements. We add a protein mix. Protein is essential for the birds, obviously, in growth, and what happens is the birds will ingest those proteins, they'll break them down into amino acids, and that is one of the things which helps bring them on in condition. So that's one of the supplements we add. We also add something called Top S. Now Top S is a pre and probiotic. It promotes growth of intestinal bacteria for obviously digestion, so the birds are going to get the most nutrition as possible out of the egg food that they're eating and all the foods that they're eating, so you get absolute optimum sort of absorption of all these good things that you're going to put in your mixers to help bring them into condition. We had a black spot medication. Black spot is a bacteria which lives in the intestine, the sort of gut of the bird, and it's not fatal for the adult birds, but it will be fatal to your young birds, and it's something that you can absolutely lose nests with. You know, it will wipe out a nest very quickly. So that sort of thing is about the prevention of the youngsters getting it rather than curing the youngsters if they already have it. To be honest, if you've already got it in with the youngster, you're probably going to lose them. So there's black spot medication in there. I get grog from Merca Systems in Portugal, and that works quite well for me. So that will clear out that bacteria so you don't have youngsters lost from it, and do make sure you keep that going throughout the whole conditioning and breeding season so you don't lose anything like that. And we do add a calcium supplement in there as well. There's generally levels of calcium in those vegetables, but I do make sure there's a bit in there so the birds can build up these calcium stores, because especially the hens, it's going to be very important they have that in the breeding season, not only for the actual formation of the eggshell, but also for the contractions of the muscles in order to pass the egg. And that is one of the reasons birds can get egg bound, is from a lack of calcium, which means that the muscle contraction cannot be as strong as it needs to be when pushing out eggs. So do make sure you offer these different things in your conditioning and your breeding egg foods. Of course, in conditioning, we're not only offering just egg food, there's also some other things. So there's conditioning seed. Now this conditioning seed I use is wild seed by Deli Nature. It works really nicely. The birds really do enjoy it. It's a nice clean mix. There's not a lot of dust and sort of excess things in it that you don't want in there. So it's a very nice mix, and the birds do readily take it. So what I'll do is I'll start offering that, and this is for all conditioning sort of feeds, is I'm going to offer that like a finger draw per bird per week. So in the more communal wet areas, so we've got several red pollcocks in here, several hens in here, we've got birds in the flights, I'll add pretty much that per bird, maybe a bit more if one bird has been a bit more greedy than the other, but make sure that they all get some. For the birds that are housed separately, so perhaps you breed canaries, then a finger draw per week will do enough for now. We'll increase that to 2 in the middle of February, increase that to 3 at the start of March, and then we'll start probably 4 days a week, sort of come up the build up to April. And we'll offer different things. So it's important to offer the birds a balanced diet, so they're not only getting this conditioning seed and the egg food, but also germinated seed. So I use a BJF Feeds germination, canary germination mix. It's very simple, so it's mung beans, rapeseed, and a few other bits in there. Soak that for about 5 hours just in water completely, drain that in a sieve, and then I'll water it every day pretty much to give it more as soon as it's sprouted. It does depend on the conditions, so I'm sprouting it outside. It's going to take a few days. If I was doing it in the house, probably within 48 hours you're going to have sprouted seed, perfect to give to the birds. And that's full of different vitamins and minerals which are important for the bird's health, but also bring them in condition. And once again, that's just a finger drawer per bird per week, and I'm going to rotate that over the course of those weeks. So 1 week they'll have egg food, the next they'll have conditioning seed, then germinated seed, and then restart the cycle, so they get that mix. Or every single dosage they're going to have is going to be something different. We're never going to do 2 of the same right next to each other, because it's good for the balanced diet of them. So there's 3 supplements that I would be lost without having them in the breeding season, especially conditioning area as well, because you really do need to make sure that the birds are getting everything that's important for bringing them into condition. You don't want to be lacking anything that's going to stop them progressing forward. So the first is Fertivit, fertility vitamins, perfect for the birds in that, and it does obviously very good, sort of selenium in it and all sorts of different natural things in there that you need. I do also have this, it's Super Vitamino. You may recall I showed this a good few months back. It's now available, I've seen it on eBay, back from the supplier. It's a very concentrated vitamin supplement. It's actually designed for pigeons, but it works absolutely fantastic on the natives and the canaries for myself. So I use that 100 ml, which is this. It will cover a lot, so it's 1 ml per 2 litres of water, so it goes a long way. So I'll leave a link to that in the description as well. Just again, another thing that's probably going to go in the water. And then finally, calcium. Now this is a sort of a powdered mix, Calcium-Lux by Versalaga. It's useful, don't get me wrong, but if you can get a liquid calcium supplement, it is digested by the birds a bit better than these soluble versions. So just a heads up there, if you can get a liquid version, a concentrated liquid calcium version, then I do recommend it, and I do think they might be available from the same company as Super Vitamino as well. So just a few products which are useful there as well. And just on the subject of those supplements, so obviously we've got the Fertivit, and then we also have a number of different things from Avian World Dublin. So you may recall that I ordered those white photography show cages we looked at in a previous video. Well, I was very kindly given a few more things in that package as well by Dr. Real, so huge thanks to Avian World Dublin. We've got a breeding diary here. We've got a Panther Smoke bomb, which is the mite bombs, which will clear out a bird room with any mite or anything like that. And we have some nest felts as well. So huge thank you to Avian World Dublin and Dr. Real for that. Especially if you're over in Ireland, then you can get some of these different products from Avian World Dublin. And obviously a lot of these are breeding essentials as well. So something that can stop your birds progressing during this conditioning period and have really quite bad effects in the breeding season if you have got these in your stock is mite. Now mite are inevitable. Everyone's going to have mite in their bird room. It just happens. It's carried on the birds, and I don't think, you know, no matter how cautious you are, you're going to have some levels of, but it's about maintaining that small level and keeping on top of it so that you don't have any problems there. So the mite will obviously affect the birds. If there's too many on them or anything like that, it can even lead to death in very bad cases. So there's a number of different methods I use to keep on top of mite. So the first is using clean and clear check mite. This is a very concentrated solution which kills mite on contact. So it's very good for cleaning your cages. So I'll spray that in all the nooks and crannies once I've washed down cages. I'll do that on every single cage, whether it be a wooden cage, whether it be a plastic cage, or whether it even be the flights. Make sure that you've got this up. So it's very useful, and of course for cleaning your nest sites down as well, just helps make that little difference. So it also not only, you know, it kills mite, but it also kills bacteria, viruses, fungi, and you know, it's brilliant stuff. It's food safe and it's poison free. So do recommend trying and get some of that, I think, and I'll leave a description, a link in the description for this product if you are interested in it. It's not, obviously it's not mine, but if it's something useful, what I found useful, I'm going to share it with everyone. So then the next thing is S76. So it's a worm, lice and mite treatment for birds. So this is for sort of ingesting of the birds. That one's a sort of cleaning spray. So I'll put this in the water, and it's relatively easy to use. It's 2.5 ml per 1 litre of drinking water for canaries, finches and pigeons, and you can use it on budgies, parrots and other things like that. So again, very useful product like that. I'm going to be getting that in the water for the birds as well. Helps clean them out in intestine, you know, obviously on the inside. Any sort of gapes, problems with bullfinches, you know, this is a useful treatment as well. So I do recommend getting some of that as another mite treatment. So again, another thing that you can use is this panther smoke, or there are other various options for these mite bombs. I know these are available from Direct Bird Products as well. This is from Avian World Dublin. So you can just get these smoke tablets, and basically what you're going to do is look at the recommended dosage, break the tablet into approximately what's going to be the correct size to cover your bird room. What I do is light it in a pan, and then you can leave your birds in the cages and everything like that, and what it does is smoke out the bird room. It will kill any mite, moths, anything like that in the bird room. And what it does do as well is get to those areas that you might not cover with the spray. So whether it be behind the cages, it does, you know, it really does get around in the air. Obviously, if there's perhaps some nooks and crannies, for example, here, it could, you know, there could be mite living under there. I mean, I know there's not, but there could be, and it will get in all those little nooks and crannies as well, and just really clear it out. And it does have this sort of citrus smell to it as well, so it does make it smell nice for a few days. It doesn't affect the birds. It does the birds quite well, actually. I think, especially breeding wise, it does good, and you can let that off in your bird room, whether it be conditioning, whether it be show season, whether it be breeding season. It doesn't panic the birds really, and it's a fabulous product. So I do recommend trying to get something like that as well to really keep on top of the mite. And then finally, this is actually physically putting on the birds in its front line. Now this is very common for dogs and cats use, and sort of things that's going to have fleas, ticks, and what like that. And it's not approved for bird use yet, but it is used by a lot of birdmen, and I use it myself as well, and it is very good. So what you're going to do is you're going to spray some of this in like a bottle or a small little jug, well, not even a jug, just a little container, like I'm talking sort of drinker size, and you're going to put that in that, and you're going to get a pipette, and what you want to do is put 1 drop of frontline on the preying gland of your bird. So what I've already done is, with the birds that are out in the flights, they've already had that done, and for the birds that are all in the bird rooms, once they move out to the flights, which we're going to cover in a second, then they will also get that. So that's going to be done for the conditioning area. Just before the breeding season, I'll give them another drop on the preying gland, and then that will cover them for the breeding season. And that's going to really make a difference in keeping on top of the mite, and really does affect the mite that are living on the birds. So you've got red mite and northern mite, which is going to be the most common. Something I also do use, and I do need to order some more of this, is the diatomaceous earth. So that's literally like actually looks like cement, but it's quite a dusty product. What you're going to do is, when you've got that sort of thing, I'm cleaning out a cage and I'm going to put some easy bed down on the bottom. I'll sprinkle some diatomaceous earth below that and then put it on top. so they can't live beneath it, and then as the birds do churn it up, it gets onto the wood, and it's just keeping that substrate you've got in there mite free, and it does make a difference. You can also use this if you're all bathing, you know, covering your nest felts in it. So put your nest felts in a bag, pour some of this in, shake your bag up, and it's covered the nest felt, and then you've got these almost mite proof nest felts as well. That's really useful if you've got your perches. So simply a wooden perch, dip your ends in it like that. Mite can live in these little crevices. Just dip it in it, put it back in, and the birds are sorted there, and the mite won't be able to live or survive on that. And what it does is dehydrates the mite, so it's really useful there. And something in the breeding season I use is it's a soap, carbolic soap. It's a pink soap. It's something that was used a couple of decades ago. I've not seen it prior to that, and it might make a couple of viewers feel quite old because you might remember it, but and that's what my parents has told me anyway. But it's this carbolic soap, and what you do is you're going to put that in you're going to get a cheese grater, grate that up, put it into a container, add some water, and you want it like butter almost when it's sort of absorbed it. Get a knife and you can spread that on your nest felts, and then stick them into your nest pans. And I'll show you a video of that in the future when we're setting up all the nest pans ready, but it does help keep on top of mite as well in there. The mite don't like it. As a quick disclaimer, if you are using any of these products like the mite killer, you're using diatomaceous earth or frontline or anything like that, remember you're using this at your own risk, and I won't be held responsible for that if you do lose anything. If you do use too much of a concentration of the frontline, it could have negative effects. If you're not comfortable, don't use it. Same for the mite killer, just make sure you use the recommended dosage and you should be fine. Don't spray it on the birds unless it recommends to do so, and then still be cautious. And then for diatomaceous earth, when you're using this, especially in large quantities, do make sure you wear a mask because it will affect your breathing, so do be cautious with that. And that comes with any products. Just understand that it's at your own risk with some of the more sensitive things, so just be careful and make sure you're following those recommended doses so you don't cause any problems. So I already do this in a degree for when we're separating birds out after the molt, but especially in the conditioning area season, this is absolute must. You must do this, is separating your cocks and the hens. So like I mentioned earlier, we've got the red poll cocks here and we've got the red poll hens down here. We've got the pair of twites together, it's just only one pair, but if you're breeding stuff like canaries or you're breeding budgies possibly, or foreign finches, when you're conditioning the birds for the breeding season, separate your cocks and hens, because if you don't, bonds are likely to form in that. The birds will naturally pair up, and then come the breeding season when the birds are in condition and you put them into their cages like that, and you're trying to have this artificial breeding environment, as we do mainly in captivity. You're wanting your best cock bird with your best hen, or you're looking at a bird that has a slight fault, and here's the bird that's going to improve that fault in the youngsters, you know, get rid of that. You want to make sure that you're using these beneficial pairings to the best, and the last thing you want is those birds pairing up to a different bird that perhaps doubling up on a fault, or just not being the desired outcome if you're looking at mutations. So do separate your cocks and the hens. So like I said, it's done with the red polls, the greenies outside, they're in two separate flights. So we've got cocks in one, hens in the other. Same for the canaries, separate. Bullfinches are separate now. The only birds that I've got paired up are the pair of twites, because we've only got two twites, a cock and a hen. They're going to stay together. We're not separating them. And the twite cock can be aggressive when introducing the hen, so I've heard, so I don't want to be taking that risk. And it's the hybrid pairs. The hybrid pairs, we obviously do want to be giving them the best chance of producing youngsters. So we've got our Norwich with a bullfinch hen, we've got a red poll with a bullfinch hen, we've got a greenfinch with a bullfinch hen, and we've got a crossbill with a Norwich hen. So we want to keep them together throughout the whole process of conditioning, and ideally if you can bring them into condition at the same time, it's going to, you know, have the added benefit that the birds aren't going to be aggressive towards each other, in one wanting to go down whilst the other isn't ready. So what we've done is we've cut down the show team slightly, and we've now got these two cages are our flight cages for two of the pairs. So we've got our canary bully and our red poll bully pair in there. The cages are about 5 foot long. We've got two perches one end and one perch the other. So there's a good 4 feet of distance between those two perches, which are spaced out. that's going to give loads of room for the birds flying vertically to get fit. It's very useful, especially with the Norwiches. I think that's going to be a really beneficial thing for them. You know, he needs to have that. So that's one useful thing if you are breeding your birds in cages. If you have the access of flights, and I do recommend getting everything into the flights if you can do, is that you want your birds to be flying like up as well, vertically, not horizontally. And it really does make a difference, because when the birds fly up, they're using different muscles and more muscles to get to obviously go upwards rather than side to side. So it does a lot better for them in getting them fit. So the birds are going to be a hell of a lot fitter by doing that. So these cages here are perfect for that, with the red poles. And as soon as the red pole cocks have gone outside, and same for the hens, the bully hybrid pairs will be going here, especially the Norwich, because getting them to fly upwards is going to be getting them so much fitter than the side to side. And I do really recommend that you do that if you can do, and having them in the flights, food and water on the floor, and your perches up probably 5 feet up. The birds have got to go down for food and water, and then they've got to fly up for the perches where they're comfortable. So do make sure you do something like that to have the best chance of a good result come the breeding season. So it's not going to be for all birds this, but especially red poles, siskins, goldfinches, and probably crossbills as well, is adding different things for them to act naturally as possible. Now you need to be careful if you are taking things from the garden. With the avian flu at the moment, I'm not taking any risks. I'm not taking any conifer or anything like that in for the birds, where normally I would get in pine branches, acer and stuff like that. I'm putting it in for these guys. So what they can do is hang on those perches and those sticks, and they can pull at the buds and all of that sort of stuff, and the cones, and retrieve insects, retrieve seeds, and all sorts of good things in there that is going to help get them fit, because they're dangling upside down. They're doing these acrobatics as they're quite well known for doing, and they're pulling it apart, and they are really enjoying it. So do try and get something like that in for them if you can. With the avian flu, I am being very cautious, so to mimic that as much as possible, I actually added some millet sprays in for these guys. That's for the red poles. Obviously we don't have siskins or goldies at the moment, and we do have a crossbill, so I have added it to those as well. But it's really good for them. They're going to be getting fit by just being active like that. Good for all the joints in the legs and their ankles, obviously getting them moving, as I've mentioned previously, and it's just going to help get them fit. So I do recommend trying something like that as well to bring them into a good condition for breeding season. A regular question I get is about lighting. So I've covered this quite a few times, but the lighting in this bird room is LED strip lights. You can see we've got all these strip lights in here, and what that is for is enhancing the natural light, not for replacing it. So we don't get a lot of light in here when I turn these lights off. From the natural light, obviously there's loads coming in here, but in here it's slightly darker, which is one of the main reasons I've got that in here. For the other bird room, we've got an LED strip light in there, and that works just as well. So what I do is stay to the natural daylight cycle at all times. I don't want to be increasing daylight beyond those natural daylight hours. So what I'm going to do is keep it within the complete sort of sunset and so sunrise and sunset. So what we're going to have is the sunrise, let's say 8 o'clock. At 8:15 the lights will come on, and then at 4:45 the lights will go off in here, and at 5 o'clock it's sunset. So the birds get that natural light to bring them up and wake them up, and they'll get that natural light to go down so they can find a place to roost and settle for the night. So it is important that at least what I do, this is what I do. You don't have to do this. I know a lot of canary men don't do this, and it works absolutely fine, but this is the method I use, and it works for me with the native birds. So anyway guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you have, please do consider subscribing down below and smash the like button if you have enjoyed it. There's been quite a few tips in this, so I hope it's not been too much for you to remember, and I will leave all the links in the description for the products which you've seen in this video. So we've got a few more things coming on over the next few weeks. We've got a visit to a softbill breeder who is going to show us around his softbill breeding setup and many of his softbills, including different colour variant softbills that aren't commonly seen. We've obviously got the All British show on February 6th, So it will be next Sunday probably for when you're watching this video, and I'm looking forward to that. So that's a big show. I've got a good number of birds entered there as well, and then we are also finally getting that special pair of birds which I talked about in December. We were supposed to get them a few weeks ago, not quite ready. Now they're ready, so it's going to be under 2 weeks before we get them, and you will see them very shortly. So do make sure you're following along for that. So like I said earlier, subscribe down below, smash the like, and I'll see you in the next video.